All right, so get ready, because today we are going deep, really deep into some fascinating territory.
Yeah.
Mindfulness, meditation, and ultimately freedom from suffering.
Okay.
You think you've heard it all about meditation?
Right.
Well, think again.
Yeah.
Our source material today delves into this concept of jhana,
Interesting.
which is a state of intense meditative absorption,
Right.
and how this can actually lead to some remarkable insights.
It's true. And I'm really excited to unpack all this with you. I mean, jhana is not just about relaxing or, stress reduction.
Right.
It's a really powerful tool for gaining deep insight
Right.
into how our minds work
Okay.
and ultimately breaking free from suffering.
Okay, so we're not just talking about, chilling out on a meditation cushion here.
No.
We're talking about serious mental training with profound implications.
Right.
But before we get ahead of ourselves, can we kind of back up a bit for those maybe who aren't familiar?
Sure.
What exactly is jhana?
So jhana is often described as a state of profound stillness and concentration.
Okay.
But it's not just a blank slate.
Okay.
It's actually a series of deeper states of absorption,
Interesting.
each with its own unique characteristics and insights.
So it's not just like one static state, but like a journey through different levels of awareness.
Exactly. And as we progress through these stages, we develop an increasingly refined ability to observe the inner workings of our minds.
So it's like fine-tuning our mental microscope to kind of zoom in on these subtle processes that usually go unnoticed.
And this is where things get really interesting.
Okay.
One of the key insights that comes up through jhana practice is understanding mental fabrication.
Okay.
Now, we're not talking about making things up.
Yeah.
It's about seeing how our minds constantly construct our reality through our thoughts.
Words and actions.
I've heard of mental fabrication in the context of mindfulness.
Yeah.
But I have to admit, it always felt a bit vague to me.
Sure.
Can you give me a concrete example
Absolutely.
of how this plays out in everyday life?
Imagine you're running late for a really important meeting.
Oh, yeah.
Your mind starts to race. Right?
Oh, yeah.
You might think, they're going to think I'm irresponsible.
Totally.
Or I'm going to lose this opportunity, this mental chatter, these predictions about the future.
Right.
These are a form of verbal fabrication.
Okay.
And it's creating unnecessary stress because you're adding a whole layer of negativity onto an already stressful situation.
That's a really clear example.
Yeah.
I can definitely see how I do that all the time.
Yeah.
So jhana helps us become aware of these mental fabrications as they're happening.
Exactly. And not just aware of them, but able to observe them with a sense of detachment. The source material actually points to 3 distinct ways we can observe these fabrications
All right.
through jhana.
Okay.
One is within a specific stage of jhana. One is as we transition between stages.
Okay.
And one is even after we come out of jhana.
So we can actually see how our minds are creating this extra layer of stress and drama.
Right.
And this awareness helps us break free from it.
Precisely.
Okay.
And the source material suggests that this observation leads to a natural sense of disenchantment or nibbida.
Disenchantment.
Yeah.
I have to admit that word makes me think of being cynical or jaded.
Yeah.
Is that what we're aiming for?
Not at all. It's not about becoming pessimistic or losing our zest for life.
Okay.
Think of it more like this. Imagine eating your favorite food.
Okay.
But you just keep eating and eating and eating.
Okay.
Way past the point of satisfaction.
Yeah.
Eventually, you get to a point where you don't even want to look at it anymore.
Yeah, I get that. Right.
So it's about seeing through that illusion of lasting satisfaction.
You got it.
That we often chase through our thoughts and actions.
Disenchantment is about recognizing that constantly feeding these mental cravings, these fabrications, doesn't actually lead to lasting happiness or fulfillment.
That makes sense. But if we're not supposed to get caught up in our desires and cravings, then what's left? Doesn't that make life pretty dull?
That's a common misconception. The source material isn't suggesting that we become emotionless robots. It's about shifting our relationship to our desires. recognizing them for what they are, temporary conditioned phenomena, rather than clinging to them as if they're the source of lasting happiness.
So it's about understanding the nature of desire itself.
Exactly.
Okay.
And this understanding can be incredibly liberating.
Yeah.
It allows us to experience joy and pleasure without getting caught in that trap of constantly chasing after them. Okay, this is definitely making me rethink my approach to happiness.
Good.
But how does this all tie back to jhana and the different stages you mentioned? Do we gain specific insights into disenchantment at each stage?
That's a great question, and one we can definitely explore further.
Okay.
But before we dive into that, let's touch on another crucial concept that's closely linked to this idea of craving and disenchantment. The concept of becoming.
Becoming. Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Essentially, becoming refers to the different senses of self that we create based on our desires and attachments. Think about all the roles you play in life. Successful professional, the caring friend, the fitness enthusiast. Each of these roles comes with its own set of cravings. And ways we try to satisfy them.
Wait, so I'm essentially like a collection of different becoming.
Yes, and each of these becoming has its own hunger that needs to be fed. The problem is when we cling too tightly to these roles and become overly invested in fulfilling their desires, we start to believe that our happiness depends on achieving certain outcomes or maintaining a certain image.
That's so true. I've definitely felt that pressure to live up to certain expectations, both my own and those of others.
And when we're caught in this cycle of becoming, we're constantly striving, seeking, and never quite feeling satisfied. This is a major source of suffering because we're chasing after something that can never truly fulfill us.
I'm starting to see the connection here. So jhana helps us to see through this illusion of these becomings and the cravings that fuel them.
By cultivating deep states of concentration, we can observe these mental processes with more clarity and objectivity. We start to see how our minds are constantly constructing these temporary identities and how clinging to them leads to suffering.
This is all so fascinating, but I'm sensing we're just scratching the surface here.
Yeah, we are.
There's so much more to unpack.
Absolutely. But for now, let's pause here. And let these ideas simmer for a bit. We've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
From the different stages of jhana to mental fabrication, disenchantment, and becoming.
You're right. It's a lot to digest. And to be honest, my mind is already buzzing with questions. I'm particularly curious about how we can apply these insights to our everyday lives, even if we're not spending hours in deep meditation.
I'm glad you asked that. Because that's exactly what we'll explore next.
Excellent. Can't wait to dive back in.
Great.
Okay, so we're back and ready to delve deeper into this idea of becoming. You know, it's starting to really click for me how clinging to these different roles and identities can create so much, internal turmoil.
It is a powerful realization, isn't it? And the source material doesn't just point out the problem. It offers a pathway to freedom through understanding the 5 aggregates.
Yes. The 5 aggregates, they were mentioned in the intro, but we haven't really explored them yet. What exactly are they? And how do they relate to this whole idea of becoming?
Think of the 5 aggregates as like the fundamental building block of our experience. They're the categories that encompass everything we perceive, feel, think, and are conscious of.
Break it down for me. What are these 5 categories?
So the first aggregate is form. This refers to our physical bodies. The material world around us. Anything we can perceive with our senses.
All right, that makes sense. What's next?
The second aggregate is feeling. This includes all of our pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral sensations, both physical and emotional.
So it's not just about touch. It's about how we experience everything through our senses and our feelings.
The third aggregate is perception. This is how we interpret and label our sensory experiences.
Right.
It's what allows us to recognize objects, people, and situations.
So it's like our mind making sense of all this data coming through our senses.
The fourth aggregate is mental formations.
Okay.
This is a broad category that includes all our thoughts, emotions, intentions, and even our habitual patterns of thinking and behaving.
Wow. That's a lot to encompass.
It is.
It sounds like everything that's happening in our minds.
Essentially, yes.
Okay.
And then finally, the fifth aggregate is consciousness itself.
Right.
The awareness that experiences all these other aggregates.
So consciousness is like the container that holds all of our experiences.
That's a very helpful analogy.
Okay.
Now, here's the key insight.
Okay.
Each of our becomings, those temporary identities we discussed, is essentially a specific combination of these five aggregates.
So if I'm strongly identified as being like the successful entrepreneur, that identity is built on specific physical forms, like my office, my clothes, my car, the feelings of ambition and drive, the thoughts and plans related to my business, and a particular type of awareness focused on achieving those goals.
Exactly. And the more we cling to that becoming,
the
more solid and real those particular aggregates feel. We start to believe that's who we truly are.
But as we've been discussing, these becomings are ultimately impermanent.
And this is where the deeper understanding of the five aggregates comes in.
Through
mindfulness and introspection, we can start to see that these aggregates are not a solid, unchanging self, but rather impermanent, interconnected processes that are constantly changing.
So it's like we're zooming in with a really powerful lens and seeing that what we perceived as this solid, unified self is actually this really dynamic, ever-changing flow of experiences.
Exactly.
Okay.
And as we gain this insight, the grip of those becomings weakens. We start to disentangle our sense of self from those temporary identities, which naturally lessen suffering.
This is fascinating, but I have to admit, I'm still grappling with how this plays out in everyday life. How do we actually practice this, seeing through the five aggregates?
It's not about trying to suppress or eliminate the aggregates. They're a natural part of our human experience. It's more about shifting our relationship to them.
Okay, so instead of identifying with these aggregates as me, we start to see them as simply phenomena. Arising and passing within our awareness.
Let's say you're experiencing a strong emotion.
Like
anger. Instead of getting completely swept up in it. And declaring, I am angry. You can practice observing the anger with a sense of detachment.
So I would notice the physical sensations, like the tightness in my chest, the thoughts like, this is so unfair. I wouldn't get caught up in the story, the identification with the anger.
You're simply acknowledging the different facets of the experience. The sensations, the thoughts, the emotional feeling, without judgment or resistance.
By creating that space, that sense of observation, does that help to lessen the power of the emotion?
That's the idea. And as you practice this mindful awareness, you'll likely find that the intensity of those emotions lessens. You become less reactive, more resilient in the face of challenging experiences.
So this sounds like a powerful practice.
It is.
But is it something that we can only do while sitting in meditation, or can we apply it to everyday life?
The beauty of this is that it's applicable to any experience. Not just difficult emotions. You can practice observing the five aggregates in moments of joy, sadness, boredom, excitement. Any state of mind.
So it's about cultivating a more mindful and spacious awareness of everything we experience.
And as we do this, we gradually loosen the grip of clinging and attachment. Creating more freedom and peace in our lives.
This is incredible. I'm really starting to see how understanding the five aggregates can be like a game changer.
It is.
In terms of how we relate to our experiences.
It's a profound shift in perspective.
Yeah.
And remember that the source material emphasizes that jhana practice can be incredibly helpful in developing this level of insight.
Right. We're going to circle back to jhana and how those different stages of absorption tie into all of this.
And that's a perfect segue into our next segment, where we can explore how those deeper states of concentration can enhance our understanding of the 5 aggregates and accelerate our progress toward liberation.
Okay, so we're back. And I'm ready to kind of connect the dots here.
Okay.
You know, we've explored these 5 aggregates as the building blocks of experience.
Right.
And we've talked about how jhana can help us to see them more clearly.
Yeah.
But how exactly do those deeper states of meditative absorption, the jhanas, enhance our understanding of these aggregates?
So the source material really emphasizes this interplay between jhana and insight.
Right.
And as we move through these stages of jhana, we systematically refine our attention and diminish distractions.
So it's like training our minds to become incredibly focused.
Yeah.
It's like a laser beam.
That's a good analogy. And within this heightened state of focus, we can then turn our attention toward the 5 aggregates and observe them with a level of precision that's normally impossible.
Okay, I see the connection.
Yeah.
But how does this seeing the aggregates more clearly actually lead to freedom from suffering?
Remember, much of our suffering comes from clinging to these aggregates, believing they represent this solid, unchanging me. But through jhana, we gain direct experiential insight into their impermanence.
So we actually see how everything, our physical sensations, our emotions, even our thoughts are constantly arising and passing away.
Precisely. And this isn't just a theoretical understanding. It's a visceral, undeniable experience that naturally loosens the grip of attachment. Imagine, for instance, being in a state of jhana and observing the sensations of your breath. You might notice how each inhalation feels slightly different from the last. How the sensations are constantly changing, never fixed.
It's like watching a movie in slow motion. Where you can really see each frame.
That's a great way to put it.
Each fleeting moment.
And this applies not just to physical sensations, but to all the aggregates. We begin to see our emotions as waves of energy rising and falling. Our thoughts as like clouds passing through the sky of our awareness.
By seeing this impermanence so directly, we realize that clinging to any of it is like trying to hold on to smoke.
Exactly. And that realization is deeply liberating. Because it frees us from this constant struggle of trying to control or maintain something that is inherently fluid and ever-changing.
I imagine this kind of insight takes a lot of practice.
It does.
Are there like specific techniques within jhana for observing the aggregates?
The source material points to several skillful approaches. For example, as you transition between different stages of jhana, you can notice the subtle shifts in the aggregates. How the intensity of certain sensations or thoughts might increase or decrease. This helps to highlight their impermanent nature.
So even the process of moving between these deeper states of absorption becomes an opportunity for insight.
Absolutely. And even after emerging from jhana, the clarity and stillness cultivated during the practice can carry over into our daily lives.
So it's like
we might find ourselves naturally observing the aggregates with more awareness and less reactivity, even in challenging situations.
It's like we've upgraded our mental software.
You got it.
Allowing us to operate from this place of greater understanding and wisdom.
And as we continue to cultivate this insight into the 5 aggregates, we naturally start to let go of the need to control and cling. We develop a sense of ease and acceptance, knowing that everything's in constant flux.
Wow, this has been such an eye-opening deep dive. It's amazing how these ancient practices offer such profound insights into the nature of our minds and this path to freedom from suffering.
It's truly remarkable. And remember, the beauty of these teachings is that they're not just concepts to be memorized. They're invitations to explore our own experience directly.
So the real practice is in the living, in the noticing, in the moment-to-moment awareness of how these aggregates are shaping our reality.
Precisely. And the more we cultivate this mindful awareness, the more freedom and peace we'll discover within ourselves. Regardless of our external circumstances.
This has been such an inspiring and thought-provoking deep dive. I feel like I have this whole new understanding of mindfulness and meditation and a renewed sense of possibility.
I'm delighted to hear that.
In my own life.
And remember, this is just the beginning.
Yeah.
As you continue to explore these practices, new insights and discoveries will undoubtedly unfold.
Well, I'm definitely motivated to keep diving deep.
Me too.
Thank you so much for guiding us through.
It's been a pleasure.
This incredible exploration.
Yeah.
And to all of our listeners, we hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity and inspired you to explore these concepts further. Remember, the path to freedom and well